Welcome to episode 339 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Meyers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I'm interviewing writer-director Joshua Caldwell, who just did a film called Infamous starring Bella Thorne. It's a sort of social media-fueled Bonnie and Clyde crime story. We talk about his career and how he got this film produced, so stay tuned for that interview. The SYS six-figure screenplay contest is open for submissions, but only for a few more days. Submissions close midnight Pacific Standard Time, July 31st, so only a few more days. We're looking for the best low-budget screenplays. I'm defining low budget as less than $1 million US. In other words, six figures or less. Every submission will get read by at least 3 professional readers, and I've lined up about 40 industry judges to read the scripts that move out of the first round. We're giving away thousands in cash and prizes to the winners. Once again, if this sounds like something you'd like to learn more about or perhaps enter, go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/contest. And if you're listening to this podcast after the contest closes, we are planning on running this contest every year. So just check back on that landing page and you'll be able to see whatever upcoming dates are approaching. Again, just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/contest. And again, only a few more days to get entered. If you found this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking or sharing it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mention in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcasts, and then just look for episode number 339. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks, along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide. I'll teach you how to write a professional logline and query letter and how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. Really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. Quick few words about what I'm working on. I'm still plugging away on the mystery thriller feature that we shot last December called The Rideshare Killer. We got the second rough cut back yesterday and it looks really good. It's really coming along. The first cut is always a little bit scary because it's just a long ways from a finished film. And usually when you watch that first cut, it doesn't even really feel like a movie. And so it's always a little bit like, gee, is this ever going to work? But we've added some temp music. Edit has gotten a lot tighter and now it's actually starting to look and feel like a movie. So that's really exciting. You know, all the hard work starts to come together and you actually can show people and see that they're getting excited by it. We've collected resumes over the last couple of weeks for all the different post-production positions. So next week we're going to start talking to some of those folks via Zoom. Obviously with COVID, we'll just get them on Zoom, have an interview with them, just to talk a little face-to-face time via Zoom, get to know them a little bit, and then we'll pick all of the post-production people that we need. Again, I mentioned this last week. It's mostly audio, color correction, composer, that sort of stuff, final mix. We just need all those people lined up so that once we lock the picture, they can all go to work. I've also been trying to get my next project off the ground. It's definitely been set back a little bit with COVID. I've been trying to kind of figure out what the strategy forward is. I've got about half the money raised for this film noir thriller. Again, we're hoping to shoot in the beginning of next year. What I'm thinking now is March or April, maybe May at the latest, we'll hopefully have a working vaccine for COVID. And I kind of think that's really what we need before people will feel really confident about returning to a normal life. With a low budget production like this, there is just little margin for error. So I don't think I can start shooting something before there's a working vaccine, or at least a lot more sort of confidence that we can get through a 2 or 3 week shoot without having to shut down and of course without having people getting sick. So again, on a low budget production, I'm just a little bit hesitant to do something while COVID is raging. But again, hopefully by early next year, we'll see a vaccine and hopefully I can have everything lined up. If I can have the script ready, the thing cast, and a lot of the pre-production, once the vaccine starts to get out there, hopefully we'll be able to jump right back into production. Obviously, it's still a big if because I still have to raise the money. But in any event, that's sort of the plan. I'm going to start working on a polish of the script as I try to finish raising the money. So that's going to be be taking up some time as well. Anyways, wish me luck on this one. Hopefully it'll all come together next year. Anyways, those are the main things that I have been working on the last couple weeks. So now let's get into the main segment. Today I'm interviewing writer-director Joshua Caldwell. Here is the interview. Welcome, Joshua, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
Thanks so much for having me.
So to start out, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up and how did you get interested in the entertainment business?
So I grew up in Seattle, Washington, and I was kind of always interested in movies and kind of got into it seriously when I realized that I had a media program where they had Avid editing systems and digital cameras, and you could take a 2-period-a-day class on making movies, and I did. And my high school also had a great thing where they would make these parody films of other movies in order to show at assemblies and announce, the new homecoming theme or the new school officers or whatever. And they were really elaborate and quite big. And so I got involved in doing that, and it was really fun because I got to make movies and show it to an audience of 1,300 kids and kind of get that feedback and that response, which was a lot of fun. And so I got started there, and then I continued pursuing it in college. I went to Fordham University in New York City. Don't have much of a film program, but they have a fantastic theater program, so I got to meet a lot of actors. And I made a movie called The Beautiful Lie, which was a short that starred this actress named Michaela McManus, and I ended up getting nominated for and winning an MTV Movie Award shortly after I graduated. And then came out to L.A., did the whole thing, trying to write, trying to sell. Ended up working for Anthony Zeiker, created CSI, producer and development exec, getting digital stuff made. And then in 2013, set out on my own path as a writer-director, made my first movie, Layover, about $6,000. That kind of launched me in the other things, and here we are.
Yeah, perfect. Let me go back and touch on a couple things you mentioned. So in high school and college, it sounds like you were doing these short films. You mentioned Beautiful Lie, got the MTV Award. What did you do to promote that film? Did you enter it into film festivals? Like, how did it even get on the radar of MTV?
They had a contest that year, and a couple years prior. No, I was the first year, and it was like a best film on campus, which I don't know if it's still around, but the MTVU side of MTV. And they were running a contest. Hey, send your film in. You might have a chance of winning an MTV Movie Award, and I did, and I was fortunate to be nominated. And then all of the process of trying to become the winner was all through voting, because the MTV Movie Award is all public voting. And so I started posting on Facebook, and Twitter wasn't around, but it was like Facebook, which had just come out at the time, and like MySpace. I was promoting on MySpace and just trying to get whoever I could to vote for the movie.
Yeah. And I noticed on a lot of these early shorts, you wrote them, directed, produced. In some cases, you were the DP, you edited. How did doing all of this stuff and wearing multiple hats, how do you think that helped prepare you for, a career as a writer-director on these feature films?
I think it's important. I think having an understanding of how each sort of department works is good. More importantly for me, though, is it started to establish what I liked, and what I went for, and the process I had to go through to get to what I felt was the good stuff, and it continues to this day. On some things I edit. I've been a DP. I was a DP on my last feature, Negative, and I even on Infamous, I operated the camera 99% of the time. And so it's something that extends into how I do it today, and it allowed me to create an aesthetic and a point of view, through camera editing or anything like that became very important, as opposed to something that I felt anybody could come in and do.
Yeah. You mentioned that you were working in development at a production company at one point before you broke off on your own. Maybe you could give us a little advice about that. Number one, how did you get that job? And then once you're in that type of a job, how did you go about sort of approaching the people there and letting them know that you were a writer and a director, kind of in an appropriate professional manner, as opposed to that annoying kid that's, constantly pushing his scripts to people?
Yeah. So what happened was I had a friend who we had a relationship, and I said to him, listen, I'm going to take an internship or whatever it is. Like, I know you're on a lot. I'd love it if you just keep your ear open for anything you need. And so I just said, can you just keep your ear open? And he said, yeah. He's like, in fact, maybe you should come in, and there might be an opportunity here. So I did. I went in, they were getting into, Zyker had a TV deal at CBS, but he was dabbling in this sort of digital, and nobody knew that much about it. And I just, I think, this guy can do it. And so I kind of came in as an unconventional assistant. I wasn't really tasked with answering phones or anything like that. I was just kind of like helping to do like blog stuff for this project that he was doing. And then there was a point where they needed to put together some deliverables on a digital project they had left, and there was nobody there. And they were like, "How are we going to do this?" And I raised my hand. I said, "I can do it for you." And so then that, I did that. They realized I could edit. I started doing editing stuff for them. That started expanding into, development and writing and producing. I have to be so thankful to Zyker because he gave me so many opportunities that normally like somebody at an assistant or an executive level wouldn't have. And I got to really dabble and try things. And I mean, the experience of doing my first movie, Layover, came out of the experimenting I was doing with the 5D on all of Zyker stuff. And so it was really, it was great. Plus you get the whole insight view of like television development, and you're working with the guy who created the biggest show in the world, and you get to go on set and experience that. And it was a really fun time. It was really good stuff, and I learned a lot.
Yeah, for sure. So let's dig into your latest film, Infamous, starring Bella Thorne. Maybe to start out, you can give us a quick picture or log line. What is this film all about?
Yeah, this story is about two young lovers going on a crime spree across America, becoming social media famous as a result because they're uploading their crimes to social media.
And where did this idea come from? What was sort of the genesis of it?
I had seen a couple years ago, I'd seen a picture of this young couple, that were being arrested by the LAPD. And there's something really fascinating about the photo. It's kind of like modern Bonnie and Clyde. And I've been interested in I was interested in a heist movie. And my research then took me sort of to Bonnie and Clyde. And because I tend to lean into doing stuff that's female driven, especially with female leads, I was attracted to the Bonnie character and what does that look like in sort of a modern day. And one of the things about Bonnie and Clyde was the myth of Bonnie and Clyde was built by the media to sell newspapers. And so that being the case, the question was, well, what's that modern equivalent? And so I was really interested in this intersection of social media celebrity and the currency of likes and the pursuit of followers with violence and crime. America has a crazy love relationship with crime. This concept of American violence, embracing violence for likes and follows, and embracing sensationalism, and how that in itself attracts violence. And this idea of somebody posting crimes online felt not just a natural fit for this sort of story, but also inevitable.
Yeah.
And so I just thought this might be a really interesting way of going about this, but also going about it in a way that was not critical of it so much. I mean, it's obviously intensely critical of it, but not in a after-school special way. It's really grounded. You're along for the ride. You're living in her delusion, and it's a completely subjective experience to me to attempt than a sort of objective telling of the story.
Yeah. And how did you go about this? I mean, this has such a sort of a very timely premise with the social media angle. And how do you make a movie like this fit in with sort of the pantheon of other, you mentioned Bonnie and Clyde, obviously Terrence Malick did a version of this, Quentin Tarantino has done a version of this. So how do you make it fit into sort of that pantheon of films? You've got this very timely angle without making it feel dated. Because a lot of those films you can go back and kind of watch, but with such a timely social media angle, I think that could be one of the trappings of this is how do you make it feel timeless as opposed to making it feel dated?
This isn't so much in the writing, but it's much more in the execution of it. But the idea is that you'll notice in the movie there's very few instances of any actual social media design. You almost never see anything like an Instagram profile. First of all, they were never going to allow us to do it, considering the theme of the movie. But more so, and I also didn't want to create like Face Smash, some stupid fake social media page, because that's out of it. And so for me, it was leaning into the psychological elements of social media. It was leaning into the way in which we're consuming social media. And so it's direct-to-camera exchanges with Ariel at the beginning and the end. It's the fact that we take the commentary, the comments, and instead of seeing them as just text on a background, they're interacting with you. They're in your face. They're rapidly flying by, which was something that Bella told me is exactly what it's like when you're reading comments on social media. Like, it's just punching you in the face, whether it's positive or... And so in that way, from anything that was specific to a certain design, we're still probably going to be experiencing that effect of social media feedback and the mechanics of it, even if the design changes in the future. So 5 years from now, it's not going to look as dated because we're not reliant on the design of the platforms, which are changing all the time. But the psychological aspects for a while, and the pursuit of likes and the desire for that.
Yeah, that's the timely aspect of it. Let's talk about your writing process a little bit. Where do you typically write, and how much do you typically write in a day? Do you go down to Starbucks? Do you have a home office? What does your writing setup look like day to day?
Well, when I wrote Infamous, I was in a condo in LA, and so I would go to, there's a coffee shop called Aroma Cafe, which is where I wrote it up in the valley. And the way I wrote this movie, which I find that every movie I write a little differently. The way I wrote this was I had the sort of beats of the framework, right? Every 10 pages sort of situation was going to be. And when I really after I'd spent a lot of time researching and a lot of time sort of jotting down ideas and really laying stuff out, and I was ready to sit down and write that first draft, I would sit down, I would open up my notebook, and I would handwrite. We're going to open on this. And then this is going to be, I wasn't trying to like write it in a prose form. I wasn't trying to like make it so if you read this, you were like reading a story. I was writing the mechanics as a journal of what I was going to do. And then this is going to happen, and then we're going to move to this. And that would be really cool if then we do this. And I would write till I got to that next beat, right? That next major beat. And once I had done that, I then would open up, the file on the computer, and I would literally go through and start writing the scenes. And I ended up on this, I would write about 10 pages a day material, So I wrote it in about 10 days. It was very fast.
Gotcha.
And I just plow through it. And then you get that first draft done. Obviously, you come up with ideas when you're writing on day 9 that you want to integrate into day 2. And so you sort of start to then go back and you do another pass that sort of fleshes it out. And then at that point, you go, that point is started to share it. And I said, okay, now I need feedback. So give me that feedback. So it was a lot of time spent thinking. But the actual writing of that first draft was very, very fast, which is I tend to do anyway, because I think you just got to get through it. You just got to get something down. Like I always said to people, we can't start the process of trying to sell it, and I can't start the process of making it better until I've got something I can make better. So let's get to that as quickly as possible and not filter myself and just go with you can't do that unless you know where you're going. Or at least I can't do that unless I know where I'm going. I've got the research to back up the material.
Yeah. And how long do you think you researched this and were kind of just making notes on it? Like once you show up and start writing, how much prep time had you given this?
On this one, I had the idea somewhere in June. I don't remember exactly where, because unfortunately my notebook's not dated on what I actually wrote it down.
Gotcha.
But it was somewhere in June of 2016, and I sort of pitched my agents, and I said, what about like a sort of Bonnie and Clyde, but it's social media. They're posting their crimes, and they're getting famous for it. And they're like, oh, that's really cool. Do you want to write it? I'm like, yeah, maybe. I don't know. Like, but I'm not a writer-director that has to write everything I do. But I don't have to. Thought, well, maybe somebody else will write it. But it just kept coming. It just kept sticking with me. And I started saying, well, let me start researching this. Let me start jotting down ideas. Let me start thinking about this character. And I did. And then I kind of probably in August started going, okay, you know what? I think I'm going to write this. I think that this is something I should write. I'm really feeling it and enjoying it. And I wrote the first draft in September, sort of late September. So it was a couple months of fairly deep research, and sort of looking into this. And some of that just spending days thinking about it, and jotting down what comes to you. And I was just going to say really quickly, I find that when I journal and I take the pressure off trying to craft something that's even readable, I just go, here's what I'm trying to do. This is what I want to get to. I find that opens up a sort of fountain of creativity in a way that, when I'm trying to create it in a form that's readable for a reader, it's much tougher. So a lot of that just freestyle writing is very helpful to the process.
Yeah, for sure. What sort of feedback did you get from your agents when you pitched them the idea? Were they very positive about it? Were they negative? And were you pitching them a number of ideas? And really what I'm getting at, was there any sort of like positive reinforcement that made you sort of, pick this idea as opposed to any number of your other ideas and sort of pursue this? Like, why was this idea one that you went back to as opposed to, I'm sure you have lots of other ideas that you're kicking around?
I mean, well, one, I was excited about it, but two, it just felt timely, right? It felt like, this could be sort of something that might be part of the zeitgeist, in with everything happening now. And especially you see all the real world things going on, and what's happening in the world of influencers and what they're doing in that pursuit. And, it felt like the next right step. And so my team was really supportive. They had great feedback, It was actually my agent's idea, robbing liquor stores and banks. They robbed dispensaries. So I'll give full credit to him. And then a lot of it, from my manager specifically, how are people relating to this person. But, I'm not as interested in writing like a sympathetic character. Some movies, I like movies that are different in some way. So the movie that I respond to was also a movie I wanted to create. And so in this regard, I just felt like this should not be, there's no version where we should sympathize with these people. Like they're frankly awful people, and I want to lean into that. And I want to lean into it in the way of really saying like, there are people not that far from this that we anoint every day on these platforms, and we give value to every day on these platforms by retweeting them or hate following them. None of that matters because it's a quantitative thing. It's not a, I leaned into that, and they respected it. And it just happened to be the one that like kind of felt like this should be the next movie. This should be the thing that we try and get made.
Yeah. So what does your development process look like? You send it to your management? Do you have other writers, director friends that you send it to? And how do you take those notes, especially in a situation like this where it's a spec script that you're writing, so you don't necessarily have to take the notes. But how do you decide what notes to take, and what does your development process look like?
Well, the challenge with anything when you give somebody a script or you have somebody watch a movie is what you're always battling is the version that they're either expecting or that they have in their head. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's where you need to parse out, well, I understand this note, but it goes against what I'm trying to do. Right. And so you have to have that internal understanding, drive, and that internal point of view when you're working on something, because it's easy to get lost in what you think, what other people are coming back at you with that may not be right for the movie, Mm-hmm. And so what I usually do is, my manager is always the first one to get the script. I don't give it to my agents. I give it to my manager because the relationship there is much more development. I don't want to say development friendly, but responding in a way that's less about can we sell this and more about creatively some ideas, right? And my agents provide that too, but the manager, I've done with them and each other. So then he'll give me notes back. I'll do some passes on it, and a group of friends, I'll get their feedback on it. And frankly, like the notes, I have a very specific thing that I want to do with every project, and I found that that's what I'm trying to convey. And so if I get notes and they're in support of that voice, not necessarily positively, but they're in support, the notes and the feed really making that voice shine through in the best way, then, I take them. And if it's something that I just instinctually don't agree with or don't feel, is right, then I ignore it, maybe to my own detriment. But I feel like if it's not clicking with me, then I'm not going to be able to do it honor. And so hang out and you start, you give it to your agents and they'll have some thoughts and feedback and you incorporate those notes like the dispensary. And then it starts going out further and you start giving it to financiers and you don't get notes. We got it to Bella. Bella had a lot of great feedback, and I wanted to honor that because I really saw Bella as a collaborator, not just like an actress. And so, she had some great insight, obviously, like why would I turn that down, into this world. And that helped make, in my opinion, that certainly helped improve the movie. And so you take the things that you like and you feel is right for what you're doing and you ignore the rest.
Yeah. So, sound advice. So let's talk about bringing Bella Thorne into the fold with this project. Did your agents and managers have a relationship with her? How did you guys get the script to her, and how did ultimately you bring her into the project?
So she was somebody I thought of early on, even in the writing, because I was writing a character that I was pretty sure a lot of don't want to play. And so she was somebody who I'd seen, was aware of, and thought, maybe this is for her, but kind of then just was said, well, we'll never get it. And at one point, after we had brought a producer, a guy named Scott Levinson, he gave it to her manager. He was having lunch with her. This is how it happens, right? It's so random, and it's just about getting your stuff out there. But basically, like, my agency found the producer, was having lunch with Bella's manager. Her manager said she's looking to do stuff with younger writer-directors. She's looking for more aggressive material. You happen to have a script like that. Do you want to read it? Her manager read it, loved it, gave it to her immediately. She loved it. We had a phone call, and she was on board. And she was on board, without an offer. We didn't have to put in a monetary offer, and we were able to then leverage her attachment to getting the film financed. And so it was very fast. She was on about a year before we started shooting, develop and work on this together, and really spend time together, understanding each other and getting to know the character and coming up with ideas. But it was very simple. And I mean, we're both at the same agency. We're both at CAA. But it was really just like, kind of just random, happened to be a lunch, and there you go. And then you're off and running,
Yeah. So what advice would you have for writers trying to break in? Do you recommend the route that you chose, which is, do a bunch of shorts, try and showcase yourself that way? Do you recommend maybe getting a low-level development job? It sounds like you've also done that. What is your advice just for someone that's starting off a screenwriting career, in 2020?
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's a tough world out there. I mean, I moved to LA right when the writer's strike happened, right? Which completely changed sort of the fabric of Hollywood, even to this day. The thing, fueled by the directing. So it's very hard for me to say, well, if you just want to write, but I think it's I would say just have patience, focus on the craft, write as much as possible. Don't send stuff out too early. Find ways to connect with other people. So much of the opportunity for me, even my agents, I knew at CAA, I knew from when I worked for Zyker, so that when we end up coming to them through my manager, who knew them as well, they go, oh, I remember Josh. Yeah, I really like, wow, he's directing now. Oh, he just did this movie. That's great. But it really is finding ways to just try and get your stuff made, to network. It's a lot of work, but you got to have the stuff to back it up. And it took me a long time before I ever had an agent. And a lot of that was me saying, well, I don't want to get an agent before they're ready to come to me, which sounds very egotistical, but I think that mindset just allowed me to say, like, I have to be able to offer them something, right? And a script isn't necessarily enough. Just having written a script is not enough. You have to, how can what you are writing or what you do offer to them as a way of, to be crass, make money, right? We're all in this to sell a movie, to fuel our careers. And yeah, people want to make something good, but ultimately, like, you're trying to get people to purchase something, which sounds really crass, but that's what it boils down to. And so you got to have something of value. You got to have a script of value, and it may not be the first script you write.
What have you seen recently that you thought was really? What have you seen recently that you thought was really great? Is there anything that kind of maybe was a little below the radar that you think would be helpful for screenwriters to check out, or enjoyable for screenwriters to check out?
I mean, not necessarily below the radar. I would say, I thought, such a great movie. Knives Out was awesome. Two very different movies, right? And I think that for me, what I also try to do is, I think so often now you see movies get, I can tell you within the first minute of the movie, tell you based on the subject matter how it's going to end. And that's because there's a very specific paradigm that's being followed and a very specific structure. And I think, like, find ways to break out of that, find ways to tell a story in not just a unique story, but in a unique way, and I mean, it's weird because, I set out with Infamous to be, frankly, to write and make something that was really batshit crazy, like really out there and ridiculous, and, the things that I made before that aired on the side of subtle and were really, like, quaint and, like, or like, did not get the attention that this one's getting. Like, this one, every step of the way, we got tons of no's, but we also got the right yeses. And we got the right people on board to make it. And so I think that says something about the movie. But finding a way to really stand out and make something that is going to get people's attention, can't hurt.
Yeah, for sure. How can people see Infamous? Do you know what the release schedule is going to be like?
It's out now. Came out last Friday. and it's on every transactional digital platform right now. So iTunes, Amazon, YouTube, Vudu, Google, like all of those. And then it's also playing in at least it's playing in across the country, which is theatrical because of coronavirus. But now it's playing in a bunch of drive-ins and selling out shows, and that's a lot of fun. So, I'd say see it at drive-in if you can. It's probably playing all week, but otherwise it's available on anywhere you see other movies.
Perfect. And what's the best way for people to keep up with what you're doing? Twitter, Facebook, a blog, anything you're comfortable sharing, I will round up for the show notes.
At Joshua_Caldwell, and I'm also on Instagram at Joshua Caldwell Director. Come to Instagram for filmmaking and fly fishing, and Twitter for self-promotion. But I'm on there. I tend to be very responsive, and happy to engage.
Yep. Well, Joshua, good luck with this film. I really appreciate you taking some time and coming on and talking with me. Good luck with this film, and good luck with all your future films as well.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Take care. Thanks for the time.
Hey, thank you. We'll talk to you later. Bye. A quick plug for the SYS Screenwriting Analysis Service. It's a really economical way to get a high-quality professional evaluation on your screenplay. When you buy our 3-pack, you get evaluations at just $67 per script for feature films and just $55 for teleplays. All the readers have professional experience reading for studios, production companies, contests, and agencies. You can read a short bio on each reader on our website, and you can pick the reader who you think is the best fit for your script. Turnaround time is usually just a few days, but rarely more than a week. The readers will evaluate your script on 6 key factors: concept, character, structure, marketability, tone, and overall craft, which includes formatting, spelling, and grammar. Every script will get a grade of pass, consider, or recommend, which should help you roughly understand where your script might rank if you were to submit it to a production company or agency. We can provide an analysis on features or television scripts. We also do proofreading without any analysis. We will also look at a treatment or outline and give you the same analysis on it. So if you're looking to vet some of your project ideas, this is a great way to do it. We will also write your logline and synopsis for you. You can add this logline and synopsis writing service to an analysis, or you can simply purchase this service as a standalone product. As a bonus, if your screenplay gets a recommend or a consider from one of our readers, you get to list the screenplay in the SYS Select database, which is a database for producers to find screenplays and a big part of our SYS Select program. Producers are in the database searching for material on a daily basis, so it's another great way to get your material in front of them. As a further bonus, if your script gets a recommend from one of our readers, your screenplay will get included in our monthly Best Of newsletter. Each month we send out a newsletter that highlights the best screenplays that have come through our script analysis service. This is a monthly newsletter that goes out to our list of over 400 producers who are actively looking for material. So again, this is another great way to get your material out there. So if you want a professional evaluation of your screenplay at a very reasonable price, check out www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/consultants. Again, that's sellingyourscreenplay.com/consultants. On the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing writer-director Ben Rood, who just did a cool little horror film called Don't Run. We dig into his background and how he was able to get this film made. Another very inspirational story of a guy just getting out there, making things happen for himself. So keep an eye out for that episode next week. That's our show. Thank you for listening.